Hello, this is James Barkell and you are listening to the Coach Doctor Podcast. In this episode I chat with Jim McKay. Jim is the current Queensland Reds Attack coach and was instrumental in both the Queensland Reds Super Rugby Championship season of 2011 in his first step with the club, and this year in 2021 in his second step with the club. Jim has also been the attack coach for the Wallabies and head coach for many other clubs throughout the UK and Japan. Like some of my other guests, Jim stands out for his passion to learn and further his knowledge. He has a Masters of Education in Sports Coaching and has published 2 research papers in the International Sport Coaching Journal. Jim is excited about constraints-based learning, dynamic systems and ecological dynamics, and is a great believer in the use of analogies to deliver his messages. He talks about attacking team sport being like water, building up and eventually always finding a way through a weakness. He has a calmness about him which matches one of his idols, Bruce Lee. I'm sure you'll find this chat with Jim as fascinating as I did. G'day Jim, lovely to see you this afternoon. How are you, mate? You good?
Great, thanks. Yep, good.
Awesome.
Thanks. Living on the Sunshine Coast and enjoying work and also enjoying coming back home here also.
Oh, fantastic, mate. I guess you're back into the swing of things with the Reds at the moment, doing some pre-season training or pre-season work at the moment.
Correct. Yep, we're in pre-season at the moment.
Nice stuff. Quickly, thanks so much again for giving up some time for the night. Much appreciated, mate, and thank you again for agreeing to answer some of these questions around different aspects of coaching, and I guess one of the main topics is the ecological dynamics that you've written about in one of your papers. So much appreciated, mate. So thank you so much. Are you able to give me an overview of your coaching experience and how you ended up at the Reds?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to share. The Reds. But I've coached for 27 years now in a full-time capacity, but not always at full-time clubs. I spent 14 years in the UK. Then I was clubs like Stourbridge and North Walsham, Norwich, Henley, Cornish Pirates, and I ended up at Leicester Tigers Academy. But I pretty much started as a player, amateur player, but coaching there full time. So director of rugby, director of coaching roles, but implementing coaching programs and a playing philosophy, but also going around to schools. And so just introducing rugby at schools and fun days and all that sort of stuff. So very humble sort of beginnings in very many different places of England. Then I got the opportunity to come to Queensland the first time with Ewan McKenzie, and we worked together for 6 years, 4 years at the Reds together, and then we had 2 years at the Wallabies. So I'll always be forever grateful to Ewan and the Reds for giving me an opportunity to coach in Australia. On that note, it was a dream of mine. I was never good enough to play for Australia, and so I wanted to coach Australia. And so when I started off, that was my vision. I had no idea how or what it would work, or there was no clear pathway. I just started with a bunch of Stourbridge and then a bunch of farmers up in Norfolk, and one footy, one light, hardly any grass, and in the back of my mind, though, that was always my dream. So I ended up doing that. It took me 19 years, but I did get there. And then that finished with the Wallabies. And then my mum wasn't so well at the time, my dear mum, and so I spent a lot of time with her. And then I coached Tonga at the World Cup. And then I had 2 years in Japan as a head coach. And to answer your question, yeah, I've come back to the Reds now. So it was an opportunity that came up, and so I've come up here and fully committed to the cause here.
Awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were a Warringah Rats boy originally?
Yeah, I played for Warringah, and that's where I grew up. And then I also played at Randwick. And Gordon actually as well. So that helped started my coaching, because at Warringah we had Rod McQueen was our coach, and he did a really good job of connecting the whole club. So whether you were 6th grade or first grade or fourth grade Colts, you all contribute to the club champions. So we wanted to be club champions of Sydney, so not necessarily win first grade. So he did a really good job of that at connecting the club. Now, we played a particular style of rugby, which would be termed 10-man rugby, but we were very fit and tough, and we were very successful. So, but anyway, I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then I was just chasing the ball all the time, but not actually getting to run with it much. But still very, very good memories there. And I don't deny that they were very successful. Then I went to Randwick, and they had a completely different playing philosophy, and obviously very, very successful as well. So and then I went to Gordon for a year, a guy called Chris Hawkins and some good friends of mine still there, Matt Dixon and all, Timmy Wallace and all, Phil Scarr and all these guys, Brett O'Neill. But they were a smart team, so we'd change for different oppositions. So and Dougal Clark was there as well, who I caught up recently within Queensland. So there were 3 different coaching and playing philosophies, but they're all very, very successful. So I think I was very fortunate that I was exposed to that there's no one way, as in the Bruce Lee philosophy around use no way as the way. But yeah, it was just fascinating for me that they could be so successful, but very, very different approaches to what that success looked like.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I like the idea of having those 3 different, I guess, philosophies around playing the game, and all 3 could be at the same time very successful in terms of their execution. Just quickly going back to your first, I guess, involvement with the Reds, how did you, with Ewan McKenzie, come into contact with Ewan McKenzie and I guess end up at the Reds that first time? What was the connection with Ewan?
Ewan was at Randwick when I played there, and he had been coaching New South Wales, and he was looking to come to Star Francais at one stage. Well, he was there, and we connected back up in England when I was at Leicester Tigers Academy. And I think the clubs I've been to, they all were sort of either down the bottom of the competition or not going so well. So I guess I forged a reputation for getting clubs going and bringing the best out of them. And so these are clubs that have been going for a long time in England. And for me, I sort of found it natural because my playing background was always winning. So I just thought that's what you want to do. And I guess I had some success in the lower leagues of England, and Ewan saw that. And then when we went to the Reds, they hadn't been going so well. He just thought it'd be a good fit. And yeah, he gave me an opportunity, which, like I said, I'll never always be grateful for that.
Yeah, and I guess from memory, the coaching group turned the Reds around at that stage, and you won a Super Rugby title.
Yeah.
And then again, your latest return to the Reds, you've turned again, you've probably come into the club at a low point, and again turn them around to a very competitive team that's just more recently won a Super Rugby Australia title. So yeah, definitely I can see that related, that correlation with where you go and improving clubs and getting them back up there. So yeah, that's a really good really good attribute, I guess, to have on your CV.
Yeah, you want to try and improve players or teams, and then certainly clubs. The interesting thing in England, I think Ewan recognised as well, I didn't have the playing background. I played first grade in Sydney, but I didn't have the playing pedigree which some coaches have. But he saw that the success of the clubs I'd been at, and then a particular style of play as well. But he just thought that'd be a good fit for where Queensland were at that particular time. But yeah, another thing on that note with coaching, like I said, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but it took me 19 years to coach Australia. But when Australia played England at Twickenham when I was there, 2013, after the game, Stuart Lancaster, Andy Farrell, and a guy called Kevin Bowring, who was head of elite coaching in England, they gave me a signed shirt, an English shirt of the match day shirt, and they said, "Jim, we see you as an English coach," which I sort of was because I was there 14 years, and we see you as an English developed coach, but we talk about you in our coach education seminars because everyone seems to be in a rush, and do you have to play for England or all this sort of stuff? But they said, because of my journey, that shows that you can get there no matter how low you start. So I took that as a real compliment. And I guess to your message, in any sports, whether you're basketball, hockey, you don't have to be like the best player or whatever to thing. But if you want to get there and make the sacrifices and the commitment, you can. Just look after your family on the way. That's the biggest thing I would say. But and enjoy. But you can get there. So that was their message that they saw in me, and I think that's a good message to give to any coaches who want to try and make it. There's no clear pathway, but you can.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people are pretty, they want to rise up that ladder very quickly, and they find it pretty difficult to take some of the knockbacks. There's not many opportunities, especially within Australia at that level to rise up, and you do have to put in your time, I guess, to achieve some of those things. Awesome, mate. I'm just going to change track a little bit in terms of your background. One of the themes in a lot of my interviews so far with coaches has been the continued learning and professional development that they've done along their journey. Can you give me a brief explanation of, obviously you've been involved in the master's course at Sydney Uni, and how that may have helped your coaching journey, and maybe any other little snippets of PD along the way as well?
Yeah, well, with the PD, forever and a day, I'm very fascinated by how we coach and learn. Not so much what you coach, but how we coach and how players learn, or how we learn. So when I was in England, like I said, I was full-time but amateur clubs. But if I was near a premiership club, I'd go and watch and watch, and then slowly you build up relationships and just be a student of the game. I remember one year I actually only did coach Tuesday and Thursday night, but I was very fortunate where I was in a position where I just watched 3 Super Rugby videos a day and just studied them and tried to make skill videos and all that. So I just invested in myself, really. So that's how I did that PD. But when I went to uni, I came back. I was thinking, well, okay, I've coached for, I think, 14 years at the time. And do I have an exit plan or strategy, or is this going to be me keep doing this? I still haven't worked that out yet, what my exit strategy is, apart from making sure I live near the beach. But so that's happened now, so I'm pretty happy. But so I went to uni, I didn't finish school. And a lady that we both know well, Donna O'Connor, and she's a coach mentor of mine, and a wonderful lady, and an exceptional coach educator as well in all sports. And so I enrolled. She encouraged me to enroll. I wanted to enroll, and she encouraged me. And we found a way, a bit like the coaching and Bruce Lee philosophy, find a way. And so I enrolled, and she was ever so accommodating. She'd work out when the other coaches were from other sports. That was one of the good things. It was a non-threatening environment, and yes, there was a few egos, but like they weren't all in rugby. And so you could share more how we coach. And she just designed some good learnings and practice settings, as you'd be familiar with, knowing her well. But it just helped me understand more how and why I coach the way I do. And reading books and literature and the theory, I go, yeah, that's what I think. Well, that's why how I coach. And so it was so reaffirming for that. And it helped with my writing skills, and which I think as a coach, I didn't finish school and worked on the building site. And then, so I didn't know how to string a sentence together. So I got myself a tutor the first year, how to research, and just helped me to write a bit. So I never got A's for how I wrote, but it was just a wonderful experience how to do like research, and you do some observations and recommendations, and to package it into try and make sense in a written form. I just thought it was wonderful. And so it was just great. So that helped me, and what it ended up doing is just helped me springboard me again on the coaching side of things, rather than an exit strategy, which I thought you might need some qualifications to get a job at a school or something.
Yeah. Mate, just going back to one of the things you just said that I guess caught my attention. you talked about some of the things that that were presented in the course, and that affirmed that things that you were doing really well. Was there anything that you came across that you thought, oh, that's a really good idea, or that, or something that you were doing completely the opposite, which sort of changed your view on how you coach?
Very much explaining the game-based approach and constraints-led approach. Because when I first started, it was just me, and you might have 40 players and just a couple of rugby balls. So I ended up doing games, and guess what? That's what we used to do at Randwick all the time, play games. So the theory behind game-based approach and constraints-led approach, then you tie it in with implicit learning, like rather than explicit learning. I mean, I used to do them types of things, but I didn't know what it meant, or the theory behind it, but also I didn't know what the words meant either.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just wonderful, and you got block, random, variable practice, and all these sorts of things. So they're the main ones. And dynamic systems theory I got really interested in. So I just thought all that stuff just made sense. In a game that's team invasion sport, attack and defence, such as soccer, hockey, basketball, all them sorts of games like rugby.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because they were the main aspects of the course that really grabbed my attention as well, and I really got really invested in, and I wrote my first thesis on skill acquisition and contextual interference, and blocked versus random practice, and then went on to do my PhD and basically did it on that dynamic systems theory. And I think I came across your dissertation when I was writing the practical applications to coaching, and I think I even referenced you a couple of times in some of your ideas. So I thought those aspects were really, really interesting in terms of how to apply them to coaching. And again, I think there's something like a 17-year gap between research and then the practical application of research into coaching. So I think what that course did really well is bring some of that research into the now, rather than finding out in 17 years down the track and discovering it all then. So so I think again, really found those aspects were really, really interesting.
I mean, just going to uni, walking in there and going there, for me was a privilege, and I was buzzing. And I thought, you're going into an environment where, like I said before, I'd normally be learning from looking and watching and talking to people at a rugby field, but to go to university I thought it was just amazing. And what a privilege for young people to be able to go. But anyway, I was 40, so it was just great. I loved it.
Yeah, awesome. No, well done. I'm not sure how many people would know this, but you're a published author now of a scientific journal article in the International Sport Coaching Journal. Wanted to ask you a few questions about your paper, an ecological insight into the design and integration of attacking principles of play in professional rugby union, a case example. Firstly, for those of us out there who have no idea what ecological dynamics are, can you give us a brief description in, sports coaches' language?
Yeah, I guess it's a good question. So if you look at a gardener or a coach, say a gardener, you can't actually grow the garden. So you got this garden there that you plant, you do the soil, and then you'll put some flowers in or vegetables, and you plant it. And you can design it and plant it, but you can't actually physically make it grow. You can only nurture it and adjust it, etc. And then if something's not working, for example, you might give it a bit more water or some fertilizer or move some plants around. So I guess ecological dynamics framework is the relationship between a coach, the practice setting or the environment they create with the players. So as in the gardener, it's the relationship between the environment, as in the garden, and with the plants. So when you're coaching, you create an environment and you've got these things called the players, and it's the relationship between the players and the environment that you set. So, for example, you set an activity up. It's basically how they adapt to that activity and environment, and you got to. And ecological dynamics framework offers us an explanation for that theory. So we can't actually physically make the players get better. It's really the environment that we set and the practice that we design that and how they relate to that gets them better. So that's what ecological, I don't know how I went there, but that's what it means anyway.
No, that's great. So how can the concepts of ecological dynamics be brought to life on the training paddock?
Yeah, so for example, you design practice that's representative of games. So one of my arguments that I see over and over, and more so now, more than ever, which is for me a bit alarming, is that a lot of the school kids, club sides, and then even players that come to our level get heavily coached like a thick playbook, which is very prescriptive and get overcoached as such. So what and being told how to do most things. So if you get coached like that, say for example at a high school, they might play the same pattern or sequence of play from for 6 years. So that's maybe all they know, like a sequential a play or a style of play or a pattern of play, and drill based and all that sort of stuff. But I think if it's too heavily playbook, and I see coaches at my level and above, and it can work, but big playbooks, and that impacts not only on your training time, but for me, it impacts on the natural learning that can occur. So you got to find a balance. So I'd rather design a practice that has some principles of play, but within that, they've got an objective to do, like within the practice. But let them explore, let them look for cues, let them discover, let them cooperate together to find out them outcomes. So that's one way of applying it into your game. So, for example, if you want to work on offloads, which is the pass out of the tackle in our game, or a particular pass, could be any sport, soccer or basketball, you could theme the game around that and try and get that within the game. So still a game, but you can just sort of theme things around that. But yeah, so you sort of guide the player away from explicit and how to do things, but allow them to explore, adapt, and discover solutions. Because guess what? We got this thing called defence coming at us, and they do all different things, and you don't get it your own way. And we're not on the field, so we can't physically do it for the players. So the more you can get them used to working out stuff themselves to be coordinated together, underpinned by some key principles and policies in play, I reckon it's a winner. It's good.
Yeah, awesome. Is designing an ecologically dynamic, I don't know if that's the correct term, but I'll use it anyway, an ecologically dynamic training session in attack hard to do, and does it take more time and preparation for coaches?
It can be challenging because when I was on my own, like I said, you can do what you want as such. It's become harder now at my level because you've got other coaches, and you've also got strength and conditioning coaches who have a tendency to want to measure everything. But I'm trying to create an environment where you're trying to learn and perform. So whereas strength and conditioning will measure intensity, but not so much performance. So, and then you've got a defense coach who might want certain things, so it can be more challenging. You've got to have strong relationships with the other coaches about what you're trying to do and why it works. And I think the gains from using game-based with the contextual stuff you talked about before, it's more mid to long-term gains. So, but where does that start? Does it start at schoolboy level? Does it start at club level? I try and do it now where I am at Super Rugby level.
Yeah, it's No, it's very interesting in terms of, I guess, the way you can utilize it. How have players taken to this form of training? Is it something that you've had to explain and describe the reasoning or the I guess the research behind it, or is it you've just gone ahead and said, this is what we're doing today, and they do it and they get on with it? How have you found that players have adapted to it?
They've loved it because you're empowering them and you're trusting them to work out. So as you know, I worked with Will Genia and Quade Cooper for 6 years. They absolutely loved it. And there's some of the players now, the younger players at the Reds now have loved it, that they know a framework to work in, and they've got some strong principles. Then I'm going to get annoyed at them when they go outside of them boundaries. But the training flows. It's like game-like rather than drill-based. So yes, we invest time in the core skills. So that might be some repetition work and skill correction and stuff in isolation. But that's you got to do that. You do that. There's a place for that. But we try and transfer that into our games. So you want to get a transfer from the skill work you're doing into your games. So the games represents the game more. So we'll represent an element of the game, and then the defence might do certain things, or there'll be an opportunity, or there's some space. And the more you can train the cues and allow them to explore and adapt and be coordinated together, I think then you got a good team that's very hard to beat. So, but to answer your question, they've really enjoyed it, and you got to explain what we're trying to get out of this particular element of practice and why we're doing it, and this is the objective. And then let them go, like let them,
Yeah.
I guess it's good. So remember, we can't be on the field for them. So.
Yeah. In your experience, have you seen improvements in, I guess, transfer in that form of training compared to, I guess, that old traditional closed drills sort of style of training?
Massive. Yeah. One year when I was in England, there was London Irish and a few teams, and Scarlets, which is in Wales, adopted the 2-4-2 principle. In rugby, that means it's a pretty rigid formation, shall we say. I know we're talking to people here from other sports and other domains, but it's quite a rigid formation. And so I looked at that. You can copy that. And a lot of the schools are actually coaching similar ways, same but different ways now. But you learn a formation, but you don't really learn the game, like how to, if you've got the biggest kids and maybe the more skillful ones, they're going to win. But clearly, for example, at the moment in Australia, there's a gap between us and New Zealand for many reasons, not just one or two or not 20, but one of them is that they've got quite good game sense, and they've got good structures, but within that, they know how to exploit things and how things work. Whereas we could play to formations and structures, but the players I find now, don't understand the game as much certainly as they used to anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Since completing the paper, you've won the Super Rugby Australia title. Do you think any of the concepts you applied have played a part in the team's recent success?
Yeah, definitely. So when I came along, I didn't enjoy my first year back at the Reds, so I'm not speaking out of school when I say that, but I had to be really strong in some of this stuff, how I wanted to coach, and I need time to coach in this way, and this is why we're doing it. They're not going to really resonate with all the theory and all that sort of stuff because they just don't get it, but I had to speak in a layman's terms. So I had to be strong in how I wanted to coach, and this is where we want to go, because it didn't reflect me. All my teams have attacked, and you've got to give clubs or people that come and watch, you've got to inspire them. They've got to see what you're trying to do. You've got to inspire them by how you play. They've got to see that you're doing your best, and you got to win, but you got to entertain as well. So most of my teams have been positive mindset around how to approach the game. The players are empowered to grab hold of it and go for it, So, and we did quite well last time I was here, the 4 years, again with the Wallabies. And then this last 2 years, you asked the question about has it transferred from where we came from. yes, it has, because the last 2 years we've won just about every attack stat in Australia, so for 2 years in a row. But we acknowledge there's a gap between us and the New Zealand teams. So we're going for that as well. And Brad's doing a great job there off the field in different areas. And I'm concentrating on my area as well.
Yeah, you can definitely see a massive improvement in the Reds' general attacking philosophy and attacking style since, over the last, I'd say 3 years, you can really see that improvement. And I know you came in with a pretty young squad, and the way that squad's been moulded, you can see that style of play has been quite different to the, I guess, rigid style that was there before. And there's a lot more attacking now in that young squad now. And I guess they've really matured and developed.
Yeah. Interestingly, they did need, that's when I say structure, for a better word, like a framework. So we needed a clear framework, which we got in to play within as such, and some clear policies and principles. And then the players, they've got to work on their skill set. So like I said, their skill set then transfers into the game stuff we do. But so it's not this one thing, or we've got set piece, we've got defense as well, and the culture. But yeah, they needed a bit more structure, and then the empowerment to within that to express themselves. So
I guess next question is around implementing new things, and obviously you've come in and done a little bit of that at the Reds. So using games that in my head have a great purpose and a great learning outcome, and in my head they seem really, really good. They don't always work like I want them to, and I guess I fail I fail in that aspect as a coach, trying to be innovative, but again, it doesn't always work. Do you ever have these failures with I guess some of your coaching ideas, or the way you might structure something and then come back later on and go, what, that actually didn't work? And in my head, it seemed like a great idea, but on the training paddock, it was probably not what I was hoping to get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Many times, and I'm sure nearly every day I'm looking to how we could have done that better. Or so I'll make notes of training each day, what worked well, what didn't. So that's one thing. So hopefully you don't make the similar mistakes again.
Yeah.
And then I think that's the beauty of using game-based approach, because you can use the game, but you just adjust. You only got the constraints to adjust, rather than having to come up with a completely new, different drill that often has any relevance to the game at all as such. So, but yeah, I remember I first started and I'd struggle with if it wasn't the right numbers or the space, because I'd seen something somewhere else and this was the numbers and this is how they did it. But then when I did it, it didn't work the same, or it might not be the right numbers or the skill level. Or so you have to understand why you're doing something, I think, and then as you gain experience, because often this way can be chaotic, a bit messy. There will be mistakes, but the environment trying to create, getting back to the ecological dynamics framework, you're trying to create a learning environment and a performance. So there's going to be some errors. So if you're always training within or lower, like you can do nice drills, they get good at the drills, but you don't necessarily get a transfer into the game. So yeah, the constraints you put on and understanding where the players have come from and where they're at, and and like I say, how much time you've got. Now I find that I did a coach education thing the other day in Queensland, and someone asked me, how long do you get to do your games? And I said, when I coached on my own, it'd be 30 minutes or 45 minutes and just have rests and change things. And now you might get 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you sort of got to use your time quite wisely and be organized. It sounds crazy, but we're actually talking a lot about it at the moment as a coaching team, about we need to be able to reflect and learn. And then how did it go? More that growth mindset for the coaches and the players.
Jim, as a coach that obviously has done a little bit of research into some of this stuff, as a coaching team, do you try to educate your coaching group in terms of some of these ideas, or how is it accepted? I guess, how is your background in some of this
I guess I got some credibility in the sense of some results. So that's a good thing. But it is can be very, very challenging. Like I said, the first year I really struggled, with the program and all that sort of stuff. So one of the catalysts is I got to head coach of Brisbane City. And I said, listen, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way as such. And the thing just took off. So the players loved it. We had some success, and I said, right, this is what we're going to be doing at Reds. So, yeah. So, but yeah, you can't come across. One of the things we're studying as well, I didn't want to get bamboozled by all these different terms and different things, but you have to work out who you're working with, and you're going to come across as a bit of a dickhead if you're using theory and language. So you just got to build the relationships with the other coaches, which can take time. And we've got a good relationship there now at the Reds.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain, right, the improvement you'll get from doing game-based over a period of time. But I think the other thing in reflection when you're training, you just look at how can it be better. So did I need to be tighter on my policies and standards? Where even the other day we were doing something in the same game, but it was a bit loose and we were all a bit annoyed. And so we worked out different ways we could actually improve it by being clearer on some policies, but there are some consequences if people didn't do that out of the policy. So it's a continual thing that grows, I feel.
Yeah. Okay. So you probably just answered the question, but as a coach, is it important to explain some of these new ideas or methodologies to the group in terms of the ideas around using some of those research-backed ideas? Or I think you've answered that question earlier, but do they need to know that? Do the athletes need to know that, or is it just something that
I just think with the athletes, you say, this is what we're doing here. This is why, and this is how it fits into our game. And if we do this well, we're gonna go real well.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
keep it simple.
Yeah, and get the buy-in around. We can get good at this. We're going to be really, really tough. And I said, I'm going to manipulate it. You got to find out how to work it out, and you got to be able to work together.
Yeah.
So you almost, it's wonderful actually, because like I said, you can't actually make the garden grow yourself, and you can't make the players grow. You can only create an environment, and then it's how the relationship, how they respond to that environment. That's where you get your growth. So the coaches will tend to, something goes wrong, straight away say, this is how you got to do it, or this is what you got to do all the time, So whereas you're actually creating a different sort of environment for them to grow and adapt and be coordinated together and take the time. You only get 10 minutes sometimes for something, but take the time to review what did you get out of it, it's actually not a complicated game as such, but there's a few key principles or policies that are really important. So
okay, nice. So just moving away from, I guess, some of the theory and I guess up until now, most of the conversation has been around some of that research that you've done and how you had applied it to your coaching. But a couple of years ago when you came to the Reds, along with Brad Thorne, you adopted a club or a playing group that wasn't in the best shape. What are some of the changes to the coaching group initiated around culture and the general environment to turn those around?
Yeah, so actually I just thought of something before I answer that question. I'll come back to it, but I think the players like analogies as well. So I'll often use the analogy of a flock of birds or a flock of fish or an orchestra. You all play a part in this orchestra, and that's how I sort of use our attack system. You all play a part, you've got to do your role, and it all works together, be coordinated together. So they like analogies as well. So that's another way of trying to get your messaging across about the attack system as a whole system, but it's got to be moved together and be coordinated together. So I find the players quite like the analogies as well. Back to the question. So with the Reds, Brad, I think Brad he had done some work with the 20s at the Reds, and a lot of people probably wouldn't know this, but he's a pretty special man. So, but he's well documented playing career. But he didn't ask or seek the coaching role as such. So the Reds asked him to do it, but all as he knew, I feel as though he knows what good looks like. And then when we came there, he sort of looked at what behaviours he thought would be good for the team in the mid to long term. And so he just put some things around then, particularly around some of the senior players and role models. So that was one of the things he did really well. And then for me, like I said before, I guess the attack, the first year was challenging because there was people, heavy strength and conditioning influence, which was needed. But I think the coaching was all trying to get to know each other. But I tried to get in some clear direction, a framework to play within, and then some policies as well. So I just chipped away. But then the next year, it just went to another level. So, which is, and it's like I said, the last 2 years we've done relatively well, but still recognising there's a big gap between us and New Zealand teams. But we're chasing hard. We want to keep getting better.
Yeah. How can we close that gap with the Australian teams and New Zealand teams?
Well, we can. There's a lot of things we can't influence or control, but we can only control what we do here at Queensland. And there's plenty of distractions, whether it's competition structures and no NPC or overseas players, G'day laws and all this. But we just got to stay strong and measure ourselves by how much we can improve. I'll come to that at the end. But it's a pretty good place to be at the moment, I feel. But Brad knows what good looks like. He has a really good vision, and he's a deep thinker as well. And he's really grown and growing into the role each year. I've seen that from afar anyway. And but above all, he's a good family man, and that he speaks highly of his family, and that's the most important thing to him. So I really, really respect him for that. I haven't always been like that myself as such, and I've learned a lot of lessons, and I feel very strongly about that as well. But he's a good package, and like I say, he's grown and growing more so into the role as we go, and and I know we're up for the fight. Like, we want to keep going.
Tell me a little bit more about Brad as a coach. He comes across, I guess, as a pretty hard bloke who doesn't beat around the bush, says what he thinks. Is he like that away from the camera with the playing group? Is he more relaxed? Is he always, I guess, a pretty tough dude?
Like I said, he's got a really good vision. He's a deep thinker. I don't know if he'll ever listen to this or someone might tell him, but he's pretty funny at times. So he likes to think he's pretty funny, but we try and find some time in the day to enjoy. And I'm normally telling stories and stuff, so he likes listening to them about keeping things real. And he's just trying to navigate through the landscape of Australian rugby, what it looks like, and I guess you got the politics side of things as well. So yeah, just learning about these things. He can be stubborn at times, but also he is a thinker as well. So, but we honest with each other. So that's a really important, strong thing. So I can say what I think now, and he mightn't agree, or he tells me what he thinks, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk it through and about it, but we both care about the team,
Yeah.
So, like I said, he can be funny. He likes ice creams. He likes eating, and he tries to find that balance. But he's trying to find that balance with, coaching and family, and trying to stay normal work. So I think we're trying to work that out, because we work pretty hard.
Professional coaches, it is a pretty full-on job. What do you guys do, or you personally, to, I guess, relax? I guess it can be a job that can consume you, and you can be thinking about, lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking about what if we did this or what if we did that. What do you do to take your mind off it, just to, I guess, recharge the batteries?
For me, and I was very guilty of it as well in my journey, and that's why I feel strongly about it now. I was quite obsessed. It's not normal, I think, like whether you're a musician or a successful, some people successful, but I mean, the amount of hours you have to invest to play the guitar well or piano, it's sort of not normal, the sacrifices one would make and the commitment. So wasn't normal what I did, drive 5 hours to meet someone for an hour to chat about rugby or, but you know, it's got to where I've got to. But in reflection, you ask about how do you relax? I find that you have to work out what you want on life and then what's important to you and who's important to you. And then ask yourself, are you investing in them areas as well? So only for me to share, I'm connected to the ocean. I need to be near the beach, and my favorite thing, surfing. And I like to be, I haven't got my own family, but so I value my extended family and friends. So that's really important for me. So now I live near the beach and I'm loving it. And, and I get to relax there. And Brad recognizes that as well. So that's just fantastic. But then when I love work as well. For me, it's not work. I really enjoy it, always have. So I've got a nice balance now. I think, to answer your question, trying to find out the balance and working out that, yeah, sport's pretty good, but you know, it's about helping other people as well.
Yeah. Jim, I noticed a couple of times you've mentioned Bruce Lee. Is that someone that you've looked at in terms of philosophy, in terms of learning, in terms of attitude or effort around becoming great at something? Is Bruce Lee someone that you've done a lot of reading on, or?
Yep, definitely. So the cliches that people are familiar, like use no way as a way, use your limitation as no limitation, like this, and then be like water. So my attacks like be like water. So water runs down a hill and it will flow, and it will just find a way of running down the hill, like where there's a weakness, where there's space. Sometimes it might build up, but then it'll just find a space. So be like water, you know.
Yeah.
And but also, just quickly, he studied all the arts, karate and taekwondo and boxing and that. And he formed his own Jeet Kune Do. But then people tried to label that and thinking, is this the way? And he actually closed his studios because he didn't want that just to be the way. You got to be water adapts to different situations or environments. So and it can be very powerful as well. But I just liked his philosophy and the way he taught. He sounded like he was just he taught himself, you know. And he wrote all these diaries and different things, and then he used his skill set, which I quite like as well. And Brad's, you know, high on the skills, and I'm probably more the dynamic framework, the systems, and you know, the be like water type thing, like put it into game-based approach, which we talked about. But he likes the skills and he's strong on them. But Bruce Lee was strong on the skills as well. So get your jab and kicks right, but then the thing with boxing or competing, you got to then, you know, you got someone who'll punch you on the nose, or you got so you got to adapt and you got to apply them skills or drills into a game like thing or a sparring. So I don't know, I drew some parallels from it. So it was
I think it's great because again, one of the common themes again from coaches that I've spoken to has been around learning from different sports. And you know, one of the guys I spoke to who again has a rugby background and talked about learning from Formula One. I'm like trying to find a connection with rugby and Formula One, and he's talking about the way they work in the pits and the tactics they might use within the race, and you know, all the different aspects of Formula One. And if you look closely enough, you can find, you know, these little comparisons here and there, and apply them in a completely different environment or a completely different sport. But but still get positive results. So I really like those ideas of, looking at other sports or other, philosophies and trying to adapt them into a new sport. So it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, with the rugby is like a team invasion sport with attack and defence, and as is basketball, soccer, hockey, all them Aussie rules. That there's high transitions, and sometimes player will say, "What do I do here?" Or you got to ask them, "What did they see? What would you do next time?" And then what are their cues? Or I often say, "Well, I don't know. It depends what the defence does, So you've got to, every little instance is different, which is why game-based or practice that represents a game as closely as possible is, I find, most useful. Yes, you've got to work on your core skills, but it's most useful rather than doing a drill-based approach where, it looks neater, maybe not as many errors, but it doesn't really teach you the context of the game. So.
Last question. As a coach, you've had a lot of assistant coaching roles. You have the runs on the board and titles to back it up. You're almost compared to like an Australian Wayne Smith, who's, often been identified as a really, really strong coach, but he's held a lot of his coaching roles have been those assistant roles. Is head coaching a role at that elite level something you're always aiming for? Are you aiming for one day, or are you happy or happier in that assistant coach role?
The answer to your question, yes, I would like to be a head coach at the highest level. But yes, I'm very happy in my role as an assistant because I understand the dynamics and the role as well. But the only time I've coached for 27 years, but I was 14 years in England where I was head coach, director of rugby, director of coaching, and then Japan. And one of the biggest clubs in Japan at Kobe for 2 years. We had 52 players and 28 staff. So they are big jobs. And the jobs I had in England, a lot of them I was doing everything, So I understand the dynamics of head coach. It's really only the Reds and the Wallabies where I've been assistant coach. But I think you need the right opportunity and timing as well. Sometimes you've got one, but not the other. And I'm more in a space now where it has to fit in more so with my values and where I'm at. For example, I love the assistant coach role because you can be innovative, the skills and practice design. So I really like all that stuff. But the head coach, careful what you wish for because it's a different dynamic and a different beast what you're working. So like I said, I think you need to be set up off the field. I'm not quite set up off the field yet. It sounds ridiculous because I'm 55, but at least I'm living in a place I like. But you need the right situation off the field, I think. But sometimes you don't get doesn't always happen like that. Whereas 5-10 years ago, I would have, I'll do that. Because there's been a couple of opportunities that had come up in Australia, but this wasn't the right timing. I needed to live near family, friends, or whatever. But just finally, though, the Reds at the moment, like I've been there 3 years this time now, so that's 7 years altogether, entering 8th season. But there's bloody good people there. I have a strong connection with Queensland, and the project we started, like I said, it was pretty tough at the start, but we sort of only feel as though we're half done. So, and I'm happy off the field. So, it'd be difficult for me to leave at now. But yes, I would like to be head coach somewhere. When the timing's right with good people and a good project. So I think you have to be careful as you progress up the coaching ladder. You want to make sure that hopefully it's values and people is pretty important because you invest quite a lot of time to it. So it's not an ego thing or a status thing, but if you're enjoying what you do, and I want to keep getting better at attack skills. So, and I love helping players. That's my drive. I didn't play for Australia, so if I can help them to get better and maybe play for Australia, that's a huge motivation for me for me as well.
Yeah, awesome. No, thanks so much. And I really appreciate your honesty in answering some of those questions. And I hope a lot of people get a lot out of them. Mate, thanks so much for your time. You've given up about an hour of your night. So I know you're a very busy man with a lot of things on around your rugby and your pre-season planning with the Reds. So, mate, you've just quickly wanted to thank you, not just for tonight, but again, you've also been open to having a chat to me for over an hour in previous occasions. Asking for advice on attacking play and coaching. You're a coach who's very happy to share and spend time talking to young coaches and up-and-coming coaches. So, mate, I think that's fantastic, and I think that's something that really needs to continue on in Australian rugby is develop and learn off our senior coaches. So thanks so much, mate, for spending that time with me personally, and I know you're open to doing that with a lot of other people as well. So thanks so much.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, it's how I learned. No real leg ups, but you develop some relationships. It's a pleasure. It's how I learned, and I certainly never forget where I come from as well. So, and I'm growing and trying to learn all the time as well. So, thanks for asking me. So it's pretty good.
No, mate, it's a pleasure. And mate, all the best and good luck for Super Rugby 2022. I think you're back to the 12-team competition. Australia, New Zealand, Fiji and Drua, and is it Moana Pacifica?
That's right. Yeah, correct. So looking forward to it, and it's a very privileged position to be able to coach at any level. So all them coaches out there, I hope you enjoy it and have some fun along the way, because that's pretty important as well.
All right. Cheers, Jim. Thanks, mate, and have a great night.
Turu. Thanks, James.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. The key messages I got from this chat was the importance of the coach to create an environment where the athletes can learn. If the garden's not growing, you may need more water, more sunlight, or some fertiliser. In other words, improve the environment. Design practice sessions that best represent the games. Have key principles, but outside of those, let players explore, discover cues, utilise cooperation, and be creative. Do the work, be patient, keep learning and build as a coach. And have a release from coaching. Find a hobby or an outlet so that the job doesn't consume you, and always staying connected with your family and the people you care about the most. If you'd like to learn more about Jim's research, you can look up his journal articles in the International Sports Coaching Journal. The first one, Practicing Unstructured Play in Team Ball Sports, a rugby union example. And the latest one, An Ecological Insight into the Design and Integration of Attacking Principles of Play in Professional Rugby Union, a case example. Both reflect on his time with the Queensland Reds and give some valuable insight into how he applied scientific research to his coaching roles. I'll include the full reference in the show notes. Jim's been pretty successful in most of his roles, so he's definitely someone you can learn from.